So the first thing I would do when drawing the shoe is to just measure out the different parts and where they sit on the page, so that I don't get this really out of proportion, like the wrong shape or size. So the first thing I'm going to do is line up my photo with my paper, with your book, and then I'm just going to take my pencil down there and make a little mark there, and that mark there is the back of the shoe. And then I'm going to bring my pencil down from the front of the shoe and make a little mark, and I'll know that that's where the front of the shoe is going to go. So that's the back of my shoe, that's the front of my shoe. The second thing I'm going to do is draw this bottom line, the sole of the shoe there. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, right, from the front of the shoe, from the front of the shoe to where it kind of turns, where it kind of starts to go up, is that long. There we go, that's the mark for there. And the angle of that, so if I can just check the angle of that, if I line my pencil up and then bring it down at that angle, I know that the angle of my shoe is sort of about that, roughly, before it kind of comes up and goes round. And then the angle from there is from there to there, that kind of angle. There we go, so that is the bottom line of my shoe. And the thickness of that sole is about that thick. So we'll just draw that in. So I've got that bit of the sole there, and now we'll work out the heel. So from there to the bottom, that's how high the heel is. There we go. And the heel will follow that. Oh, how long is that? It's that long. And it comes straight up, and then the angle of that bit, this bit here, is that. There we go. So there we go, there I've got the sole of my shoe, and I've got the heel of my shoe. You can just about make that out, I think. The next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to measure the height of the back of the shoe. So that's the height to there, and the angle from there to there is kind of like that sort of an angle. But then it curves out. So I'm going to say it sort of curves out and comes back in and up, a bit like that. There's a line that I didn't like there, actually. I don't think that was quite right, so I'll just rub that out. Just rub that bit out there. There we go, roughly that. Okay then, so what should I do next? The height then, the height of the shoe from there to there. So at that point where it's starting to curve, the height there is just about that. So I can put that in. I might measure that bit too. There we go. So all the time I'm measuring the lines that I'm going to draw, and then I'll look in a second and I'll see whether they look right, because there might be some bits that look a little bit wrong. Right then, so I've got that bit in. I need the angle of that. So the angle of that is kind of like that, and then the height of it, maybe a little bit higher than that. What do I need next? I'll check the height from there to there, I think. So all the time, is that right? Yeah, that's about right. Maybe a little bit too high. all the time I'm checking the angle, so I'm lining my pencil up with that angle, drawing some angles in, and then I'm checking the distance as well. So I'm checking the angles and I'm checking the distance all the time. Is that about right? Yeah, that's about right. And then that bit's got the curve going down and back up. And then that comes forward and around. Check that angle. About right. Okay, so I've got some of the basic shaping. I'm just going to stand away and just check and see if anything looks a bit funny. So that there looks a bit funny to me. It's a bit too sharp an angle, a bit too pointy. So I'm going to just curve that off because that looks a bit too pointy now that I've looked at it again. Do you know what? I actually think it looks a bit far back. I'll just move that across slightly. So you can just keep looking and checking and moving bits that you don't think look quite right. All of your pencil lines at the moment should be light enough that you can rub them out without seeing the marks that you left before. So without denting the page, you should just be able to rub them out and the page is nice and clean. Something about this that I don't think looks quite right. So you can see that although I've measured things, sometimes they're not quite perfect. So some things just need adjusting. I can just look at them and I can say, oh, that's not quite right. I'll change that little bit until it looks more right. That's getting better. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. Brilliant. So that end bit I've not got quite right though. What does it do? It comes out from there, round, down. That's better. Okay, so I'm just going to put my laces in. Check the angle of those laces. And there's 4 of them. And they're quite evenly spaced out. There we go. laces are in. So the thing you need to do now then is you need to start adding tone, which is shading. And I always start when I'm shading. Sorry, I've just realised I've missed this detail out, so I'm just popping this little detail in here. The thing is with the shading is I always start with the darkest bit first. So the darkest bit on this shoe is either that bit in there or this bit in here. So one of those two bits I'm going to start with. I'll start with this bit here, and I'm just going to press as hard as I can. I'm holding the pencil really close to the tip, and then I'm just pressing really hard and getting that really accurate, because that is going to be my darkest tone. So I do that bit there next, and then I do a couple of, there's a darker bit in here, and there's a darker bit here, there's a darker bit down here. But once you put in those really dark areas, then you have to get the areas where there's gradient tone, where it starts really dark and it blends into a lighter tone. And a good example of that is just here. So you'll see it starts off really dark, and then it gets lighter and lighter and lighter until it gets to this really pale grey area here. So I'll show you how I'll do that. I'll hold my pencil again reasonably close to the end of it, to the tip of it, and I'm going to press really hard at first. So where I want it to be dark, I'm going to press really, really hard. And then as I move away from that area that's really dark, where I want it to get lighter, I'm just going to press lighter. So I'm pressing quite hard still. Now I'm starting to press lighter. Pressing lighter, pressing lighter, pressing lighter, and now that shading's really light. Hopefully you can see that sort of tonal difference if I bring it a bit closer. There we go. You can see where it starts dark and then it gets lighter and lighter as it goes up. The thing to try and avoid here is stripy shading. So if I use my pencil on the tip like this, I'm going to get stripes in my shading. That's not what we're after. If I use my pencil on the side, like this, so rather than holding it like that, if I hold it a bit further away, like that, and put it on the side, then I can get nice smooth shading, which doesn't look stripy. I can show you the difference between those two. So we don't want the stripy shading, we want the smooth shading. The way to do that is to put your pencil on the side. And then I'm just going to work my way through the picture, looking really carefully at that photo and working out, right, where do I want it to be dark and where do I want it to be light? So I want it to be dark here, because that's where it's dark on the picture. And it gets lighter as it comes into the middle. And it would probably take me a good 2 hours to finish this drawing, but I'm not going to make you sit watching this for 2 hours. You can see where I've got that gradient shading.